Thank you very much for joining us here in the Voice of Job Seekers. This is Mark, and thank you for joining us for this conversation. If you have any questions about the podcast or any of the content on the blog, you can go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com. In the meantime, I want to introduce to you Matthew Monahan, who is the CEO of Good Hire. Good Hire is a trusted leader for background screening solutions with mission to build safety and fairness into personal employment and community screening background checks. More than 30,000 customers rely on Good Hire's proven compliance expertise, industry-leading security infrastructure, and years of experience aggregating and organizing public records. Good Hire is a part of the Inflection.com family. I just want to welcome to the show Matthew Monahan. How are you, sir?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. If you don't mind, and not that people can't go and read your website, but your view and your take on the company's genesis and its mission.
Yes. The overall mission for Good Hire and our parent company, Inflection, is to fundamentally build and deepen trust. And so as it relates to the hiring process, that means deepening trust between job seekers and employers. And so one of the things that makes Good Hire really unique in that process is that we do focus so much on the job seeker, whereas a lot of background screening companies might only focus on the employers. So part of the reason we're really excited to be here with you and love what you're doing with the podcast.
Thank you. And part of, I guess, in starting your company, of course, I think it's not too many people or not too many companies are willing to do both sides. And just so that there's a clarity about it, how do your services are presented before both? Are they both presented separately as sort of like other job sites where the employer pays and is free to job seekers, or how does that work?
That's correct. So we see from a business model perspective, we want everything really simple and as free as possible to job seekers. And what we're really trying to do is put job seekers in control of their background check results and give them a sense of empowerment in the process. So for us, as a company overall, our social mission is critically important to us, and we've been in business for over 10 years. We've worked with a wide range of partner organizations ranging from the private sector to government and the like. And so, that reflects itself in an experience for job seekers where we hope it's really simple and easy to come onto our site, goodhire.com, get your own personal background check the way that employers would see it. And from there, we offer unique features to allow candidates and job seekers to annotate their background check results. So obviously, if there's anything inaccurate that the court has reported, county court offices and so forth sometimes have mistakes, candidates can go through our site to make those corrections and file those disputes. But for most people, the background check results are accurate, and then it's really just a question of providing a sense of transparency and visibility to the job seeker of, okay, here's what the employer is going to be able to see. And for the 70 million Americans that have some sort of criminal record on their report, what we offer as part of our True Me feature set is something we call comments for context. And what we found was that really the approach to background screening that has traditionally been taken is fairly inhumane, or not very human, I should say. It's kind of like, here's a record, here's something that the machine spat out, and it's court record 59387 and this type of conviction. And so what we wanted to do was put a more personal human touch to this process by giving job seekers a chance to tell their side of the story, to contextualize their records. And we see this continuing to deepen in the form of attaching reference letters, explaining any gaps that one might have in their professional work history, being able to share the information in a completely permissible way. It puts the job seeker at the center of the process. And so, coupled with everything else that we do for making background screening online, mobile, portable, it's amazing. A lot of these background checking services still require you to use fax machines and get your results back and all of that. What Good Hire is really about is adding that modernized, elegant touch to a process that can be very, very intense for those who are through it. And we want to have that holistic sensitivity and take the perspective of the job seeker throughout the process.
That's very interesting. I guess we could talk about each side a little bit separately. As far as employers are concerned, that can actually shorten some of the reference checks that they go to, because I think part of the check. Well, I guess you can develop different issues about it, because I think you also work with credit checks and drug screenings.
Yeah, that's right. We have both of those features predominantly available to bigger types of companies. And once we verify those companies through on-site inspections, then they're allowed to order those products. And again, everything is permission-based, though, so the candidate has to grant their permission to be able to run those searches. And so that's kind of how the drug screening and credit works.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm also thinking, and I just thought of this as you were speaking. I was thinking about some states may have different laws regarding what employers can use for checks. Is that considered as part of the employer side as far as the state and the state laws? Like for credit checks, there's some states that, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this because I haven't looked into it lately, but there's some states that used to have something about credit checks and being able to use that as part of the screening process for employment. Do you run across that at all?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, employment screening has a very nuanced legal landscape that varies by state and varies by data. And so at Good Hire, what we try to do is focus on employers who have a legitimate need to assess financial responsibility. So this would typically be a senior executive type of role in some sort of financial services or a company that would need to really be looking at a candidate's credit history. Because the whole point to background screening, of course, is to help develop that sense of trust and fairness and safety between the employers and the candidates. And for a lot of positions, going through a candidate's credit report is really not that relevant, and isn't necessarily something that we want to encourage unless it's really important for the role. The same goes for drug screening, and we're noticing all sorts of interesting trends as the legalization of marijuana has occurred in several states. We're seeing a move to reduce the amount of marijuana screening that happens as part of drug tests and just focus on other types of substances for those employers who engage in drug screening, which again we think is really about large employers that have a very specific reason to run those types of checks.
Sure. Okay. So on the other side, for the job seeker, perhaps this might, in some cases, shorten the amount of time that they can be employed. Because right now, employment is roughly 55 to 60 days, and sometimes the employer will give the impression that's due to the background check, which many times is manual. You may use the word organic, but in using your service, since a lot of that could be right there on the employee's profile or the employee's gateway to information, that possibly might shorten it. Have you seen that as part of a benefit of using your service?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we certainly think that the background checking process should not take more than a couple weeks maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And in many times, we're able to deliver a big portion of our results within the first day. So our goal is to make the process really fast and easy for both the employers and the candidates. And, you know, if you apply for a job and then you move on in your career a couple years later, why does all the same information have to be checked again? Like, why do you verify your education degree multiple times? Once it's been verified, shouldn't that just be done?
Right.
And so part of the breakthrough here that we've brought to market in Good Hire is we give job seekers the ability to reuse their background check and share it with future employers, particularly for those pieces of information like education verification that no longer need to be done again and again. So we do see in this on-demand world that everything is just speeding up, and as we're able to do this through our mobile devices and able to sign consent forms with digital signatures,
sure,
able to email consent online, we think that this is a trend that's not going away, and our goal is to continue to be the leader at making this process really, really fast.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting. That as I begin to formulate an image in my head, that the same employee that's being checked on several different times will already have been vetted to a certain degree. So the more companies that checks on them or on that person could definitely have the most information. It could be the shorter background check process.
You got it. Exactly.
Okay, good enough. You also work with those who are looking to be hired after a result of being an ex-offender once they get out of prison. And that's a big deal right now, especially with the different campaigns going on, especially with the Ban the Box campaign, which is the beginning of it. But I can see where your company might be able to usher in a second phase of that, because a lot of that has to do with the unknown and being able to provide a record of some sort for those who are ex-offenders and their reputations.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about it, Mark. It is something that's really important to us, and we're really proud of the work that we've done in this area in particular for the second chance community and people who do have criminal records that are essentially following them around after they get out of prison or after they are released from the courts in whatever fashion. And so for us, I mean, it's a bit of, we're a commercial, private sector company that offers background screening solutions to employers. And so we can't change, everything about the criminal justice system.
Right.
But when we look at the criminal justice system, we can't help but feel that there's a lot of things that do need improved. And I think in particular, those who have criminal records being unable to find public housing, often being no longer qualifying for public benefits, having different access to education that's restricted. It really makes you question, are we setting up people for success in reentering society if all of these basic needs can't be met? And it seems like even though the individual did their time in the criminal justice system, that record is kind of haunting them onwards. So what our goal is to make it easier to get a job for people who have criminal records. And a lot of that means educating employers on making sure that they understand that these are really qualified individuals who are often more motivated to get back on their feet. And there's been study after study that shows ex-felons perform better in the workplaces in many cases and that people with criminal records are often just as qualified for positions. And so we like to think of it as beyond the box. The box is just one part of the application, but really what this is about is employers getting to know the individual, getting to understand the nature and the context of mistakes that may have been made in the past, which we've all made mistakes, and just being able to not have people be judged for the worst thing they've ever done all the time. We want to create a society where people can move past these things. And so we're only contributing our little piece to the equation, but that's really part of the thrust of the effort behind TrueMe. And it's one of the reasons recently we've been honored with an award for TrueMe as one of the top products of 2016 by HRE. And we're starting to get a lot more recognition from the nonprofit community. We work with a number of partners in the reentry aspect of things. And Inflection and Good Hire is a certified B corporation, which basically means that we make decisions not just based on financial stakeholders, but really taking into consideration all of the stakeholders, which in this case is the candidates, the communities that we serve in, and the employers who are interested in creating a fair, safe, and trusted workplace that's fully compliant for the HR managers and the rest of the team. So we're really trying to create a balanced approach on all sides, and again, opportunities like this to speak directly to job seekers is really important to us.
Yeah, I can really see. I've had a couple of guests in this past fall and winter that directly work with prisoners and ex-offenders who are about to get out, and that they are helping them not just with just getting hired, but just helping them their whole life, and helping them to not just get a job, but also to make sure that process is best as they can to make sure that their life has balance, and so does their and balance with making good decisions, and also making sure that their work is that their work is that they're finding a job by doing the right things. And all that to say that I can see how those two, what you're doing and what they were doing, could really work hand in hand, especially when it's taking, you're giving some of the control back to them and empowering them, as opposed to for them being powerless and disoriented when coming out of prison, because it is a challenge, it is a life change. So I definitely see a lot of good in that, and how that can really go well together. Probably the last thing I'd like to talk with you about, and you could just talk about it for a couple of minutes. Recently, I think in the past few months, and maybe it was on your site a little bit longer than that, but you had a page devoted to diversity and inclusion, and how you're all inclusive. And you talked a little bit about it, and I think you demonstrated through some of your services, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how important it is to your company to be much more inclusive, and how more if it's an act than just saying that you're an inclusive company.
Yes, thank you for that question, Mark. Diversity is of crucial importance to us as a company, and it's founded on the belief that beyond just the notion that we're all equal and we're all in this together, that diversity really brings strength and a lot of benefits to everyone on the table. And so teams that have diverse workforces consistently perform better, consistently return more value to their shareholders, consistently create a more warm and effective workplace for all individuals. And unfortunately, Silicon Valley is a bit behind on this. I think Silicon Valley has been progressive in some respects, but where our headquarters are located here in the Bay Area, there is a noticeable lack of representation from African Americans inside the Silicon Valley workforce, as as women at the leadership level of a lot of these organizations. And so, diversity comes in all forms, but I think, gender inclusion and racial inclusion inside of Silicon Valley is certainly a hot topic these days. One of the first steps that we've taken to really seek to be more of a leader in this area is just be really transparent. Mm-hmm. And so we believe that transparency is key for increasing awareness. And so we publish things like our wage gender reports. We put a lot of information on our blog. And I think the page you're referencing was a letter from my brother, who he and I, co-founded this business a few years ago, speaking directly to these issues and really trying to stir up the conversation within our industry as well. So we're proud of the progress we've made, but we're by no means perfect, and we have a long way to go as well. But overall, would definitely reinforce your question and the basis of how important diversity and inclusion really is. And as a technology solution for HR companies and HR managers and companies all over the United States and internationally, we see an opportunity to continue to educate people about this. So any ideas you have or any of your listeners have to continuing to deepen this conversation, we're very interested in that.
Yes, and I really appreciate it, and that's one of the other things that really attracted is that you're willing to have the conversation. As to a lot of companies, even smaller companies than yours, are not ready to have that conversation. And I can understand some of it because it's new in the technology space that this would be a big deal. But if you look at the social networks, they can be quite loud. Probably not in volume, but perhaps I compared it to like scratching your nails across the board. It could be quite disruptive. But I think just to talk about it, I think that kind of diffuses some of the bomb. If we were to use an analogy, it diffuses the bomb before it really goes off. And I think that's really great. So just to end it all here, Matt, I really appreciate you taking time out to speak with me and speak with my audience. I imagine if people want to know more about your company, they can go to goodhire.com and check out the solutions and the information that you have there. And I want to thank you for coming on The Voice of Job Seekers.
Thanks for that, Mark, and really much appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak with you.